Welcome to Sage Audio. Today let's cover how to mix with Harmonics. But first, if you have a mix that you need to have mastered, send it to us to receive a free mastered sample of it with the link in the description. Bass saturation settings. For this video, I want to cover some creative ways to use Harmonics. So let's start with some bass saturation settings. I'll use the saturator to use a warm setting on the low frequencies and a more aggressive one on the highs to increase the lows while keeping definition. Then I'm going to insert this split EQ by Eventide. Now with it, I can affect the tonal and the transient aspects of my saturation separately. I'll increase the sustain-esque elements of the lowest frequencies and the transients on the highs. Now this way, the harmonics that I introduced have quieter details amplified in the lows and percussive aspects amplified in the highs. Let's take a listen and notice how the bass sounds both full and detailed. Drum side image saturation. For my drum bus, I'll create a send on which I've inserted the free plugin MSED to solo the side image. Then I've inserted Saturate by Newfangled Audio to heavily distort the drum side image, adding lots of harmonics. Lastly, I use this Punctuate plugin by the same developer. With it, I can cause frequency-specific expansion to the side image. Now by adding the harmonics, I filled out the otherwise sparse side image. Then by expanding the side image, I cause dynamic amplification of these aggressive harmonics. So let's take a listen to how this creates a truly unique and impressive drum sound. If you're enjoying the video, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It's free and it helps us bring you more videos. Harmonics into doubler. From my melody or my vocal, I'm going to create a send and subsequent auxiliary track on which I'll insert a saturation plugin to introduce strong harmonics and aggressively fill the vocal's frequency spectrum. Then I'll insert a vocal doubler plugin, in this case H3000 Factory by Eventide. I'll select its tripler preset and increase the mix to 100%. Now by filling out the frequency spectrum of the vocal before doubling it, I made an effect that's designed to thicken a vocal sound even fuller. Lastly, I'll blend in the overall effect with the aux tracks channel fader. Let's take a listen.
We got that love. We got that, we got that, we got that. We got that, we got that. We got that love. We got that, we got that.
In key saturation bands. The song we've been working on is in the key of B flat major. Its fundamental is D flat. Now with this info, I'll use the plugin Saturator by PSP AudioWare and center my low frequency saturation over the fundamental and the high frequency saturation over an overtone or a higher harmonic. Now since I'm distorting higher frequencies, I'm going to use this oversampling function, and I'll also create a drive effect by increasing the input and decreasing the output. Let's take a listen and notice how saturating in-key aspects of the signal makes it sound fuller and more musical. Time-based drum saturation. With the Shaperbox plugin by Cable Guys, I'm going to use the drive module to introduce hard clipping to my drum bus. But I'm also going to use the audio trigger to isolate it to my transients. With the window in the middle, I ended the distortion after 1/16th note. Now this keeps the distortion to the beginning of my drum hit and also creates a slightly musical sound whenever the distortion or the harmonics are taken out of the signal by the end of the 16th note. So let's take a listen and notice how the drums sound more impressive. Auxiliary mid-frequency saturation. If the overall mid-range of your mix isn't sounding right, here's a fun and easy trick that you can use. Send your buses to a single auxiliary track on which you've inserted a linear phase EQ and isolated the mid-frequencies. Then insert a saturation plugin. Now, I found that tape saturation works well. I'll choose this tape plugin by Baby Audio and introduce a good amount of drive while also including some of its compression options. Lastly, we can blend the effect in with the aux channel fader. Let's take a listen and notice how full and impressive the mid-frequency range becomes. Unique duct harmonics. This is kind of a strange trick, but it has both creative and practical uses. First, I'll create a send from a signal, in this case a vocal bus, and first insert my saturation plugin. Then, I'll insert a compressor and sidechain the original, unprocessed vocal, making it the trigger. Now whenever the beginning of a vocal transient is present, the level of the saturation goes down, but increases as the clean vocal gets quieter. Now if used very aggressively, this could have a cool creative sound, but if used subtly, it helps keep a signal's transient clean while still getting the benefit of harmonic distortion. Let's take a listen.
We got that love. We got that, we got that, we got that. We got that, we got that, we got that love. We got that, we got that, we got that.
If you're enjoying the channel, use the search box to watch more of our videos. Using exciters on bus. Exciters are frequency-specific saturators, typically ones that isolate the harmonics to the highest frequency ranges. Now this makes them great for brightening up a sound. I'll often use this free Air EQ and exciter plugin on my buses to quickly add clarity and bring forward details in the highs. So let's take a listen to how it instantly brightens the sound and creates a dense high frequency range. Separating kick and bass. These last two chapters will be pretty simple but useful nonetheless. Now if our kick and our bass are clashing too much, we could use varying harmonics to help differentiate them. For example, I could use tape saturation on the kick, which creates odd harmonics, and tube on the bass to emphasize even harmonics. Now this is going to depend on the plugin that you use, but generally these types of saturation are odd and even respectively. Let's take a listen. Separating vocal and instrumental. Similar to the last chapter, we could use varying harmonic formations to help separate clashing signals. I'll use this transistor saturation on the vocal to subtly increase the high frequencies and clean tube saturation on the instruments to create balanced, even and odd harmonics, giving the two unique sonic space. Let's take a listen and notice how each is a little more distinct from one another after introducing these types of saturation. If you have a mix that you need to have mastered, send it to us to receive a free mastered sample of it with the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching.